So before we start looking at the second half of Marquis' essay, let's just review the results of the first half, which are the most important thing about the essay because it's his argument for the immorality of abortion. What does that argument say? It has some premises. First premise: we agree that it would be wrong to kill you or me. Okay, so it's important to note that that is the first premise. That's the beginning of his argument. Is that this seems to be a truth that we can accept without proof, right? Because it's the beginning of an argument. So if it's the beginning of an argument, it has no proof. So the idea is that intuitively, this is obvious to you and obvious to me that it would be wrong to kill you, and it would be wrong to kill me. Second premise is less obvious, but and is something that he goes into to argue for in the second part of the essay. But here it's just a premise, and that is more or less this: that it would be wrong to kill you or me because it would be robbing us of our futures. So it's wrong. We accept without proof of any sort that it would be wrong to kill you or me, but we can say why that it would be wrong to kill you or me because it would be robbing us of all our futures, all of our future experiences. What can be um, what can be inferred from that? And here is the inference. Therefore, this is the big uh, conclusion that it would be wrong to kill anything in which you'd be taking from it a future like ours. What is the idea here? I think Marquis would say that what we've done, sorry, my computer is seizing up, but what we've done is identified the so called wrong making feature of killing someone. That is, what is it that makes killing someone wrong? Well, and this needs to be qualified. If we are taking from that being a future like ours, then we know that killing it would be immoral, it would be wrong. And that's the big conclusion here, right? It's important to note that Marquis is giving us a sufficient reason for the wrongness of killing something, not a necessary one. That is, a sufficient reason is one where if it obtains, we know that the conclusion follows. That is, if something has a future like ours, it's sufficient. That in itself is sufficient for us to say that it would be wrong to kill it. But it's not a necessary condition. That is, it may be, and Marquis has nothing to say about this, but he leaves the door open. It may be that there are other reasons for which killing something may be wrong, right? That is, what he's supplied is a limited theory of the wrongness of killing. If something doesn't have a future like ours, then he's given us no reason why it would be wrong to kill it. But he's left the door open that there may be, in fact, other reasons. So this is okay. So all we need to do, right, is to assert that's his assertion. That is, the average fetus, the ordinary fetus, indeed does have a future like ours. Um, and on the argument, if the wrong making feature of killing something is you'd be taking away a feature like ours, killing a fetus would certainly do that, says Marquis. Therefore, it'd be wrong to kill it. This is the heart and soul of the essay, right? This is the major assertion that he's making. He has given us an argument for the immorality of abortion based upon a more fundamental theory of the wrongness of killing. That theory is not exhaustive, it's not universal. It could be that there are other reasons besides taking away a future like ours that killing something is wrong. But he doesn't go into them. He's offered a sufficient reason, but not a necessary one. So that is the most important thing about the essay is this argument here. Now, in the second part of the reading, what he's concerned to do, as philosophers are, is to defend his theory against possible rivals. And the important thing about that is that these rival theories, they're other theories of the wrongness of killing, that they may not have the same implications for abortion. Take the desire account. If one could say that no, the wrong making feature of killing someone is that they have a desire to live, and by killing them, you are thwarting that desire. And it's the most fun. One may say that the desire to continue to exist, to continue to have life, is probably the strongest desire that we have. And so, thwarting that desire is the worst thing you can do to somebody. That would be something like the desire account of the wrongness of killing. And Marquis argues against it. He has to, because think about it. If having a desire to continue to live, being thwarted, is what makes killing someone wrong, let's face it, they don't. Fetuses have no desires. They're not at the point yet where they can have desires, so they're not at the point yet where they can have desires thwarted. So, under the desire account of the wrongness of killing fetuses, killing a fetus would not be wrong because the fetus has no desires. No, so I'm not going to go into, you read it. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail trying to explain all his reasons for thinking that the desire account and what he calls a discontinuation account of the wrongness of killing are not as good as his own theory of the wrongness of killing. But one very strong, I think, example that he gives is that sometimes people have no desire to live. They get so depressed or they are in such despair that they really and truly um, have no desire to live. That happens to people. Yet we still think that it would be wrong to kill them, and surely it is, right? That is. On the desire account, there's a problem there because there are people who, at least temporarily, have no desire to live. But we would still say that it would be wrong to kill them. Marquis says that his own theory is better accounts for such cases because, well, despite their not having a desire to live, say, we still anticipate that they will have valuable futures like ours. That is, they'll get over it, hopefully. They'll get through their depression and despair, and they'll have a future that actually has the kind of good and valuable experiences that we anticipate for ourselves. That is, they'll have futures like ours. So Marquis gives I think, some pretty compelling reasons, actually, why his account of the wrongness of killing is better. Lastly, are there exceptions? Are there exceptions to Marquis' theory of the wrongness of abortion? And I think there surely are. That is, it would be a mistake. It would be a bad reading. It would be an incorrect reading of Marquis to say that he thinks all abortions are immoral. His theory does not support that at all. There are exceptions. There certainly are exceptions. And one of the interesting things about his essay is that although he gives a hint about what one type of exception would be, he doesn't give an account of a more obvious exception. But I think that it's part of reading the essay is to realize that. The exception that he does admit is that is, he suggests that there may be rare cases where continuing the pregnancy for the woman is even worse than death for the fetus. And that would be a utilitarian basis, and it would provide for exceptions. You can fill those in for yourself, but he believes, and I think, well, it's an interesting point. Is there anything worse than death? If there is, then there are pregnancies probably where the bad for the pregnant woman outweighs the bad for the fetus. But one last point, there is a rather obvious exception that he doesn't go into, and that is that some fetuses simply do not have futures like ours. And they perhaps are fairly rare cases, but they're there are not non-negligible number of pregnancies where a woman knows that the fetus that she's carrying is so disabled that it will not have a future like ours. That it is either mentally or physically disabled to the point where we cannot honestly say that the future awaiting it is a future like ours. Think of devastating situations like where a fetus is so mentally handicapped that it cannot be aware of its environment, it cannot interact with other human beings, it cannot have any meaningful interaction with its environment. That would be a case where the fetus does not have a future like ours. I don't think Marquis really talks about it from my memory of reading it. I've read it several times, but it's a rather obvious exception. We would, I think, all admit that sometimes the fetus does not have a future like ours. So, what does that mean? Marquis has not given a reason why it would be wrong to kill it, and so it leaves open the door that there are abortions which are certainly not immoral. Now, again, it has to be kept in mind that his theory of the wrongness of killing is not meant to be universal or comprehensive. There may be other reasons. There may be other reasons why killing something without a future like ours may be wrong. For instance, it may be wrong to kill any animal for food, right? It doesn't have a future like ours, a chicken, but it may be other reasons not to kill it, right? It may be that a severely disabled fetus does not have a future like ours, but it may be that there are other reasons why it would be wrong to kill it. He leaves open the door, but he doesn't provide those reasons. So it's important to note that there are definitely exceptions for Marquis. they may be covered by other reasons, but they're certainly not covered by his reasons for the wrongness of killing.